everyone, to another episode of Prolific Talk Podcast. I'm Emmanuel Martinez, your host. I have my wonderful guest and friend, someone I work closely with, Frank Samperi. Take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Manny. I appreciate the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a real estate attorney. It's going to be 25 years come January that I've had my own real estate boutique firm in Hackensack. Can't believe how time has flown. And what I do is I handle all aspects of real estate, residential, commercial, throughout New Jersey. I've represented first-time home buyers, investors, builders, seniors, you name it. I've seen it and I've handled that. And again, thank you for having me. And let's start talking.
One common question I always come to find a lot of people ask me is, what exactly is the role of an attorney in a real estate transaction? And I felt like it was a duty of mine to share this platform with my good friend and real estate attorney to explain exactly his role in all our real estate transactions. So I know everyone's looking for that answer as to exactly what an attorney does on a real estate transaction. Before we get to that, I would love to give Frank the opportunity to explain to you all exactly his journey and how he got to this point of his career.
Great. Thank you, Manny. So when I first started practicing, real estate had been at an all-time low, and there really weren't any positions for a real estate attorney. So I defaulted into doing litigation work for a decade. But during that time, I developed a lot of negotiation skills. And I hit a point where I said to myself, I'm not following my true passion. And that really was real estate. And part of why I wanted to be a real estate attorney was to help people get to the next level in their lives. A real estate transaction is probably the biggest purchase anybody's going to make. And that's very important to them. And part of my service is to provide them with the hand-holding that they need to get them there as easily and comfortable as possible.
All right, so now to finally answer the question, what does a real estate attorney do in a transaction? I give this opportunity for my good friend Frank to explain that to the viewers.
What I really would have liked you to have asked is, what does a real estate attorney not do? Because my role, it becomes more and more involved depending on each client. Historically, a real estate attorney's job was to provide good and marketable title. Today, it's evolved into so many other things. My main job is to make sure that my client is well protected, the transaction is fair, and they get what they want at the end. It's very important to make sure that your contracts are reviewed quickly, attorney review letters go out quickly. Everything is so time sensitive that any delay could cause a deal to fall apart. I'm very conscious of that. That's one thing that I don't want to happen. It's never as a result of my lack of attention that makes a deal fall apart, and I'm sure Manny would agree to that. Yeah. You know, I do a lot of hand-holding. If somebody has a question, they're not sure, they want an explanation of something legally or not legally, I'm always there, or my support staff is there to help them every step of the way. My office is always available. We answer our emails, we answer our phone calls quickly. We know how important and how stressful a transaction is for a buyer or a seller, and we do whatever it is that we need to do to make the client happy, to get them to the closing table.
So from an agent's perspective, why I personally like to enjoy working with a strong attorney, sort of like Frank, which we've done many transactions together, is I always say to my team is, it's not only your team as far as agents, but your mortgage lender, your title person, and your attorney is a very strong factor in the transaction.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because it reminds me of a transaction that we had together for a property in Leonia, where you had called me, and the seller was very nervous. There were a lot of issues, and we had a few three-way phone conversations before you even got the house under contract.
Yep.
So I was able to help them feel at ease in accepting an offer before we even got started. And then the contract came in, and I knew exactly what we were dealing with and the concerns that the seller had. And I think the seller already had a comfort level with me by speaking to me before we even got to the point of selling the house.
Right. And I think that what people may not understand is Frank doesn't have to get on the phone prior to him being hired on that transaction. So what he's speaking of, a lot of the audience may not understand. When he is giving his hours out, he doesn't know if someone's going to retain him after. that person can go ahead and, once I sell the house or get an accepted offer, they can go ahead and actually hire any attorney. They have the right to do so. So these are the little things that Frank's shown time and time again that he's willing to do, not just for me, but really for the sake of the client, to build a comfort level in selling their biggest asset on their home.
And Manny, I'm always happy to do that for you or any potential client who calls me to, try to guide them in the right direction and help them as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. So normally, when exactly does an attorney come into place in a real estate transaction, Frank? Because I know I mentioned about you sometimes chiming in when I need you prior to the transaction starting, but when exactly are you supposed to get a hold of the client?
Okay, so formally, once there's a fully executed contract and it's sent to me with the attorney information who's representing the other side, my office will immediately pull it out of the email, open a file. I will then take the file, review the contract, draft my attorney review letter, call the client personally, introduce myself a little further, go over the contract, point out things of concern, and then ask them if they have any questions about the contract. Once they're okay and they feel comfortable, I will then send my attorney review letter out to the other attorney. Always keep in the real estate agent so they know what's going on. And I do pride myself on doing all of that in less than 24 hours. And I'm being generous on the time.
Absolutely.
From when the contract hits my desk, because I know how important it is to get the process started.
So that's a very important point as speed. What exactly affect us as agents working with an attorney, Frank, that doesn't move as quickly once we get an offer accepted?
Okay, that's a really good question, because even though a contract is signed, there's a 3-day attorney review period, which means that either side still has the right to change their mind and cancel. So a seller can accept another offer if it's higher that comes along until we're out of attorney review. I've had situations where I've represented sellers and the attorney on the other side took 2 and 3 days to acknowledge the contract. A higher offer came in, that buyer lost that contract because my client called and said, cancel that deal, I want to accept the new offer. So it's very crucial to be timely. You can really have an adverse effect on your client if you take too long.
Frank, and what comes to mind is that tagline that you always told me from the very beginning, and I'll let you share it. Go ahead.
Sure. So I have this saying, how a deal starts is how a deal finishes. And I can tell right from the beginning how a transaction is going to go just by all of the players. So when I look to see who the other attorney is on the other side and the other agent, because I know so many people in the field, and I speak to the client, people are who they are. They don't change. So if you're difficult from the beginning, you're going to be difficult all the way through. If you're slow from the beginning, you're going to be slow all the way through. So the way a deal starts is how the deal is going to take place up until we get to closing. And usually, as you know, that's true.
Absolutely. And then it becomes a domino effect, right? It becomes a domino effect on us as agents, more time invested on this particular transaction, more time for you, the real estate attorney. And we've encountered our own transactions where, luckily so, right? We haven't really had no flaws on our end, but where we know from the very beginning, as the tagline goes, Frank was able to see up front that how the transaction started is how it went through.
Right. And it's very important that even on the other side, whoever they hire to be their real estate attorney is a real estate attorney, not somebody who does matrimonial law and picks up a few extra real estate files on the side, because they're not going to be able to give it the attention since it's not their expertise. And there are times when our clients are very frustrated because they're not hearing response from the other side, and many times I have to keep following up. I haven't heard from you. It becomes unnecessary work because we can't control what the other side does. We can only control what we do.
Absolutely. And not to put so much focus on speed, like Frank is talking about, and having a good team, but there is pressure on us, the agents, when there's deadlines on a contract that need to be fulfilled. So when I work with someone like Frank and having a team and seeing other agents that other attorneys we work with, there is a difference. For example, there's a difference when the commitment is due or the inspection reports have to be sent back. If we have an attorney that's not responding, it takes us, the agents, more time out of our day, and then that leads us to not looking for more business. So that's the effect of what it does to an agent. I would like to know, Frank, from your perspective, what's the effect of having a good team and also the challenge when it's not so smooth, and exactly where do you find the joy and passion and where you're at today?
Great. So, the saying, it takes a village. No one person can make anything successful on their own. And it's important when you're working with people and you're aligned, because if there's something I can't get from the attorney, I might call Manny and say, look, I'm not getting it from the attorney, maybe you can reach out to the other agent, or vice versa.
Yes.
And deadlines are extremely important, and I diary everything. So if a mortgage commitment is due and we don't get it on time, we follow up for it. Same thing with the deposit monies. Same thing to try to get everything to the closing table. And when it's important for a seller and a buyer to have a good team behind them, because it's almost like a check and balance system. When you work well together, you get to the finish line a lot quicker. Deals stay together when they should stay together. They don't fall apart for all the wrong reasons. My favorite part of an entire closing, and you know this by being in closings with me, is that I do the closings myself. I go through the documents myself. Today, a lot of title companies handle that. It's important to me to explain everything to my client. And the best part of the whole transaction, which brings me back to my original passion, is to see the smile on their face when we're done and I say, congratulations, here's the keys, you're a homeowner. And that's what brings the joy out.
So I want to thank all you guys for tuning in to another episode of Prolific Talk Podcast. What to look forward on the podcast is I would like to bring the people that I closely work with, and it'll be a different vendors that I associate with, whether it's an attorney like Frank, a title company, a lender that I work with, people on my team, new agents, more experienced agents, home inspectors, just trying to give you guys information so this way when you're ready to either invest, sell, buy, or rent an apartment, questions that may come up to you, we're filling you in on those. So I thank you guys, and I appreciate Frank coming through and giving his knowledge. We will have a follow-up, more in-depth conversation as far as contracts, his past experiences, and exactly break down a deal from start to finish.
Great. Thank you, Manny, for having me. I really enjoyed the time that we've spent, and I'm looking forward to coming back and talking some more.